Oh my goodness, it's a war out there! Let me duck in here and I can tell you about it. Oh, man, it's dangerous out there. What's going on is the Punic Wars. So let me tell you about them. There was a place known as Carthage, and it was off the coast or the northern coast of Africa. You can see Carthage here in this picture. You can see, oh well, I'll talk about that in a minute. And it was Carthage was founded in 800 BC, around thereabouts, by the Phoenicians. And we talked about the Phoenicians, how they were big time traders and sailors. And they went all over the Mediterranean Sea selling, and that's where we get our alphabet from. Well, Carthage became a powerful rival to Rome, and it was on the Mediterranean. Um, and it became this great trading empire. It was the largest and richest city in the western Mediterranean Sea. I mean, it made a lot of money because it did a lot of trading, because that's where its ancestors came, did, was the Phoenicians. And Rome and Carthage both wanted control of Sicily, and that's that island I told you about when we talked about the geography. And this is, Sicily. You can see this little picture of Rome, of Italy here, and Sicily off the coast, and Carthage is right there. So it's right between both of them, and they both wanted control of Sicily. Uh, Punicus was the Latin word for Phoenician, and that's where we get the title of the wars, the Punic Wars. Um, so the first Punic War. In 264, and like I said, they were fighting over the island of Sicily, and Rome wanted to prevent Carthage from taking over the island, so they sent an army there. Well, Carthage wanted to stop the invasion, so they sent an army there. And Rome realized, okay, Carthage has they're big about trading and stuff. They have a pretty big navy. Um, we're going to need a navy in order to defeat Carthage. And so over the next 5 years, they build a navy. And in 241 BC, Rome destroys the Carthage navy. And so they force Carthage to A, leave Sicily, and B, pay a very large fine to Rome. This is still back in the days of war where war made sense, that whenever you defeat somebody, they pay you money. Nowadays we do things kind of crazy, because when we defeat somebody, oh well, we got to give them money to rebuild their country, which I think is crazy. Call me insane or something. You can see the battle here, here's Rome, here's Carthage, here is Sicily. This is the major battle to where Rome destroyed the Carthage navy. The Battle of Agates Island, there in 241 BC. So that was the first Punic War. Second Punic War is the one everybody really tends to delve into. But the first one greatly influences the second one because of, well, we'll get to that here in a second. Let me not get ahead of myself. Carthage begins to expand its empire. Just like Rome, it's wanted to expand. And the Carthaginian Empire was, doing fairly well. And so it wanted to spread over to Spain. So it come along the coast of Africa and on into Spain. And they were in southern Spain. Well, Rome said, whoa, 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 whoa. This is starting to get more into our area of influence, because Rome was starting to spread out that way into France, or the area known as Gaul at that time. Uh, and they're like, whoa, whoa. So Rome helped Spain rebel. And this sets off Carthage. And so Rome and Carthage go to war. And there's this guy by the name of Hannibal. Okay, and this is why everybody tends to love this war, is because of Hannibal. Hannibal is Carthage's greatest general, and arguably one of the greatest generals in all of history. Okay, matter of fact, Vin Diesel is working on putting out a movie about this guy Hannibal. Whenever he makes this movie Hannibal in the next couple of years, and you see this, this is who this is about. Um, and he was raised from a boy to hate Rome. His father was actually in charge uh, of the military during the First Punic War, and he was embarrassed by the loss to Rome. And so he swore an oath to his father that he would avenge him against Rome. And so he had this great, great hatred of Rome. And so in 218 BC, Hannibal was sent to attack Rome. And he decided he was going to take the fight to Italy. So he came across into and landed up here and came into Spain. And then he came across um, into the Alps. And remember, if you've watched the video about Roman geography, you saw we talked about how the Alps really protected uh, Italy from or Rome from people coming in from the north. And as he went across the Alps, he lost a lot of troops. The only way that he was able to get stuff back together again was the fact that a lot of the tribes in the northern Alps he was able to get to join him and convinced a lot of them to join their cause, and he rallied a lot of them to fill in the troops and that he had lost crossing the Alps. And by using their help, these people who lived up in the Alps, it allowed them uh, to really make it. And he used war elephants. This is another reason people think he's so cool, is because they use the giant war elephants. And you can kind of see a war elephant here. Um, and it's kind of interesting. It's different. It's not a horse. It's this giant elephant, which is really cool. Um, but Hannibal was a very brilliant general. Um, and we'll look at some of his battles now. I've had a few people try to tell me Hannibal never lost a battle. A battle. That's not true. Um, Hannibal actually won a lot, but he lost some as well. Okay. Alexander the Great is the one who never lost a battle. In 216 BC, the Battle of Cannae, Hannibal actually defeated a larger Roman army. Um, there was some. Your great generals weren't anywhere near Rome. They were actually off expanding the Roman Empire. Okay, and so they were gone. And so you had some people who thought they were decent generals. They tried to lead this Rome and cut off this nuisance of Hannibal. Well, they were idiots because they weren't brilliant generals, and Hannibal destroyed this larger Roman army using his war elephants and so forth. And so people start getting a little worried. In 207 BC, uh, over in Spain, the Battle of Metris, Hannibal's brothers killed. And that's where he was getting a lot of his supplies sent to him and everything. His reinforcements uh, was through his brother there from Spain, and his brother gets killed. And this infuriates Hannibal again, but it also really cuts off his supplies, and so he's no longer getting supplies sent to him from back home and so forth. He's not getting reinforcements to his army, and his army, anybody that dies, he doesn't have anyone to replace them. 204 BC, Rome is starting to, because Hannibal's still doing a lot of damage, okay? And there's a lot of stuff I'm not mentioning. He's doing a lot of skirmishes here. He'd run and he'd attack this city. He'd, take it over. Then he would leave and go somewhere else before a large Roman army could come and he was doing damage all over Italy, okay? And he was become a huge nuisance to Rome. And in 204 BC, Scipio, I get mixed up with the movie, Serpico, uh, is sent down to begin attacking Africa. He thinks maybe if I start going to attack Africa, Hannibal will come to try to stop me, and we can stop this whole chasing Hannibal all over, trying to figure out where he's going next. And Scipio becomes known as Scipio Africanus because he goes to Africa and he winds up doing a lot of damage there in Africa. And in 202, Hannibal is recalled back to Africa when he hears word of what's going on there, and he has to defend his homeland, Carthage, because Scipio is about to attack Carthage. And it's not the best of conditions for Hannibal as he arrives and tries to set up to protect his homeland. And Scipio defeats him at the Battle of Zama. And Carthage had to give up its navy. It can no longer have a navy. And remember, this is a people who, their beginnings trace back to the Phoenicians, that's what they were known for, was their sailing and their trading over the sea. And they had to pay another huge fine to Rome. And we're talking about like lots of gold and stuff. And Scipio would have marched this back into, the Roman form. Man, it would have been a glorious, entry into the Roman form with all this gold and so forth that Carthage would have had to pay them and be victorious during that march to only have been there. This is a map. You can kind of see what happened. You can kind of see how came over here to southern Spain and on up a little bit, and you can see how Hannibal comes in and marches across the Alps and so forth, and you can see some of the attacks and very forth, them chasing each other around, and here's Scipio comes into North Africa and Carthage here and begins to attack. The Third Punic War, and then some. And just to tell you a little bit of what happens, I'm not going to really delve deep into the Third Punic War. In 196 BC, Rome now had controlled all of Greece. Because remember, I told you they had their major generals were out expanding the Roman Empire. 148 BC, they took control of Macedonia. Remember, Macedonia is where Philip II and Alexander the Great came from. It was right there north of Greece. 146 BC, Rome got tired of Carthage. They, okay, we're in the Third Punic War. We're tired of dealing with you. We're tired of you, coming up, causing us problems. The Second Punic War was enough. Okay, we have had it. That's totally enough, dude. Enough. And so, they burned the city of Carthage. They enslaved 50,000 people out of Carthage. And then they salted the ground. And I don't know if you know what salting the ground does, but if you throw a lot of salt on the ground, your parents are probably going to kill you if you do. Well, maybe not kill you, but, get onto you because nothing's going to grow where you throw that salt. Okay? So they made that area ungrowable for a long time because it was so overly salted. And we've talked about that salt, abundance of salt or salination of the ground as a problem before, up when we were talking about Mesopotamia. And then in 129 BC, to show you, they go on and conquer their first Asian province. And just a little map to kind of show you how territories have traded hands. This is still all of Rome. Well, anything in the blue, the dark blue, the light blue, and the pink, or purplish pink, was Carthage at the beginning when the First Punic War started. And the stuff in dark blue, all this here, Corsica, Sardinia, most of this here, Sicily, was lost to Rome after the First Punic War. Okay, so they started gaining all this land over here in Spain, and that's whenever Rome intervened, and the Second War begins, and they lose all that. And by the end of the Second Punic War, all they had left was this right here. They had been, their empire had been greatly diminished by their conflicts with Rome. You can kind of see just kind of a timeline of how it happened from 264 BC, the beginning of the First Punic War, and to them burning Carthage in 146 BC. And Mare Nostrum, this is a saying that the Romans began meaning it was Latin for our sea, that the Mediterranean was their sea. They had conquered all of the land around the Mediterranean Sea, and they called it our sea, Mare Nostrum, and it's what we called the known world at the time. That Rome ruled the known world. So until next time, I better get out here to back to the battle. Uh, Deuces. Ah!